And that means it's time to track the tropics from sunny Central Florida. I'm West 2 meteorologist Eric Burris.
And in Savannah, Georgia, I'm WJCL 22 Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson.
All right, so Jeremy, we've got a named storm and two other areas of interest. Let's get right out to track the tropics, my friend.
Yeah, it's busy out there right now, and that's one of the few times this entire Atlantic hurricane season so far we've been able to say that. Name storm, couple areas of interest out there. And first off, I guess we can talk Dexter.
Yeah, that's right. So let's get right to it. There's the 5 a.m. advisory for Tropical Storm Dexter. Maximum sustained winds are at 40 miles an hour. It's developing good convection, but I want to point out that we'll get to the forecast cone here in a second, but on the western side of it, it's swirling. You can see those low clouds there, but it's not developing anything, at least that's fully circling the storm system itself.
Yeah, there's some wind shear out there. So the good news, this is headed away from land. So probably don't need to spend a lot of time with this, but it was a name storm, fourth of the season.
Yeah, and there's the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. Expected to get a little stronger, perhaps. Winds are at 40 now. Anticipated to become a tropical storm with winds of about 45 miles an hour. And then by about tomorrow afternoon, transition extratropical and becoming a big gale low as it kind of moves north of the Azores out toward like Spain and Portugal.
Okay. So then we also have the areas of interest,
Yep.
and there's one that is maybe piquing some people's interest. When you see this, just on the surface, there's a 40% chance of tropical development off the southeast coast and kind of east of Florida.
Yeah, so this is one where the models have been trying to kind of go back and forth with this idea of something quick developing, kind of a homegrown type deal. The good news is at the moment, it doesn't look like any support is really there for anything significant here, but it is an area at least to discuss just to keep us in the loop on things.
Yeah, and one thing they did this morning with their latest update from the National Hurricane Center, they kind of bumped it a little bit away from Florida and kind of off from my coastline
Yeah.
here that I cover for coastal Georgia into the Low Country. And no one model is really aggressive with this. So if we see any development, maybe a tropical depression, but as I've been telling viewers, whatever happens with this, probably just going to bump some rain chances up wherever that low travels. And if we stay west of it, we won't really have any impact or maybe a rip current risk, depending if a
Right.
low would actually form.
Right, right. So that's the best kind of tropical system, the kind that doesn't really bother us too much. But then that brings us to the coast of Africa and the open waters of the Atlantic. And the open waters of the Atlantic, there's a wave that has kind of gotten its sea legs, and over the next 7 days' time now has a medium chance of tropical development. And this one, Jeremy, is really the first actual area of interest in the main development region for this upcoming or this current hurricane season.
Yeah, and this is still going to kind of battle in that main development region, some dusty, dry air. And that's why, if anyone here, I know we have a lot of weather enthusiasts that probably look at the models themselves and they're like, well, that water is really warm out there. Why isn't it developing? Maybe not the best setup initially. I think once this gets to the islands or north of there, that is when we could see the development occur.
Right. And so to that point, of course, we use computer models to try and discern exactly what's happening. So Jeremy, we probably should dial into that just a little bit, yeah?
Yeah, because you're going to start seeing these pop up on social media. We've said it. We can't prevent it. What we
Right.
can do is give sort of our honest take on things, take all the hype out of it, and just give people our thoughts. So let's go ahead and
Right.
do that.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to track the tropics here, and this will start with the American GFS model. Okay. Just to give you an idea, what we're looking at is mean sea level pressures. Okay. So we'll dial in and we'll just kind of move forward. And I've got the color table set for an anomaly just to kind of over accentuate. So, first off, looking at this weekend, kind of interesting, Jeremy. I noticed this morning the GFS was trying to indicate a little bit of an area of low pressure signal. Nothing significant, but a little something of an idea out in the open waters of the Gulf. Something interesting to look at.
Yeah, and that appears to be kind of Yucatanish
Yeah,
down
yeah,
there in the southern Gulf.
right. But then we start looking on that right side of the screen there, and that's that Atlantic wave. This is Tuesday, so this is going to be about a week from now. Notice out around the Turks, Caicos, north of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Nothing strong, but a definite tropical system. developing, getting stronger outside of the Bahamas around Wednesday of next week. And then look at where it's going. That's Saturday, August 16th. That's 2 a.m. And that's heading toward coastal North Carolina.
And again, that's one run of the operational. So do
Right.
you have some of the ensembles, and we'll take a look
Absolutely.
at those?
Yeah, so that was the GFS model. So let's do this. Let's pop up the ensembles and let's get an idea. Excuse me. I'm in the middle of something. I need you to take a couple of minutes. I need you to take a. Of course, this is what always happens, Jeremy. Why don't you take the ensembles, my friend?
Yeah, if you want to, if you can scrub through those there. So the ensembles, what we're looking for are little lows.
Jeremy, I'm muted, so you can go. If you're hearing me, just keep talking.
Okay. All right. So what we're looking at right here are these little lows. And notice how, as we get towards the middle part of the month, there's a cluster that goes into the Gulf and then another southeast coast sort of off from that. So is there a good agreement right now with ensembles? What happens with this 50% area that's highlighted right now in that main development region? No, there's not good agreement. So you look at that spread. I mean, this has Western Gulf all the way to one little low there down near South Florida, and another batch that's off the southeast coast. So
Right.
this kind of gives you a better idea versus just the one operational run. There's a lot of ideas, and that's the GFS. So obviously,
Yep.
we can take a look at the European model as well. One thing I'll say is, I think between us, we may think that the GFS has timing maybe a little bit better, um, but the Euro also develops this just a few days later.
Right. So, okay, so let's look at the difference in timing, right? So the European is a little bit slower, but let's roll through time and notice this is Thursday, August 14th, crossing now. It's much further south, crossing near the ABC Islands, the Antilles there, getting into the Caribbean and coming right to Jamaica Sunday the 17th. There's the
Yep, and again,
Caymans.
that's an operational run that Eric is
Yep.
showing right there. And that certainly kind of fits what we've been talking about, where maybe that dusty dry air limits development once it's east of the islands, but then once it's over these warm waters, maybe shear is a little more supportive. You lose some of that dusty dry air that's inhibiting development,
Yeah.
and something could get organized pretty quickly.
So that's the European deterministic model. Let's switch around and let's look at the European ensembles here. And real quick, just notice off the coast there of the Carolinas, this is Saturday, August 9th. You see some of those little circles. I'll bring it full screen here. You see some of those circles off the coast of the Carolinas. So that's the ensembles, at least trying to maybe indicate something a week off of your coastline, Jeremy.
Yeah, but yeah, it does have a couple very, very weak lows, and that's why at the moment we're saying, well, maybe a tropical
Yeah,
depression, but this would be not a wind maker, just a bump up in rain chance for
right.
maybe upper South Carolina into North Carolina.
Yep, yep. And then from there, of course, we roll through and watch I've got to switch from the 6Z to the 0Z, but watch like hornets coming in. And again, just like you had mentioned earlier, the ensemble spread is from essentially the Yucatan and the Bay of Campeche all the way out to Bermuda and beyond. And so, I think that if you try to analyze this in a scientific manner, what we're seeing is the models are saying, yeah, there's going to be something that forms, but they have not dialed in at all on where it's going to form. Because again, if you're new to this is not like 50 different hurricanes or tropical storms. This is 50 different versions of the same storm system on top of itself. We call them ensembles. It's 50 versions of the European. So, Jeremy, I think our confidence is high that we're probably going to see something form and move generally off toward the west northwest, but its exact path is absolutely out to lunch. We have no idea
Right.
yet. And that's not showing weakness. That's just showing we know what we know what we don't know.
And one thing I was trying to convey to viewers in my area, the National Hurricane Center has that area in orange highlighted that's
Mm,
50%,
yeah,
like way out there in the eastern Atlantic,
yeah,
is they kind of have it curving. They have it sort of that west northwest track, and maybe my thoughts are, if you had to like cut that horizontally in half, I would maybe favor it staying a little more on that southern half of
Oh
that
yeah.
orange shaded
Oh
area.
yeah. If not even shifting that a little further south.
Yeah, so we may see that. I know some of the zero Z models last night, at least operational, were they were really all over the place. And the European model also is sort of taken a lead wave and then it tries to develop a trailing one. So I
Yep.
think just because we're 240 plus hours out, it's really struggling right now. A lot of these models. But one thing we were discussing, and this isn't something new now, we were talking about this last week already,
Yeah.
that once Chantal happened, 4th of July weekend, that triggered some, hey, you know what? In our analysis, we picked out several things.
Yeah.
And then now we've sort of gone back through, again, all the cycles, taking a look back. We probably, in hindsight, and we don't say this very often, but in
Yeah.
hindsight, we probably should have highlighted this area right here.
Yep, yep, agreed. Because it obviously it gave us Chantal, and then using the cycling weather pattern, we can trace it back before the July 4th event. We can go back to May, and even you and I were texting yesterday. We could go back even further than that and look, look into the fall and winter and see it was a very weak signal fall of last year into winter, but definitely it started to amplify up a little bit looking at spring and of course now into summer.
Yeah, and so what we probably did not, why we didn't highlight it is it was always like a trough there. It wasn't like a real
Right,
strong low pressure area.
right, right.
But one thing we did notice going back and looking at sort of past parts of the pattern, it always had this really strong high to the north. And what's one of your favorite sayings, or one that you kind of like to say about the ridge over troubled waters?
Ridge over troubled water, that's it.
Yeah, where if you get a strong ridge to the north, below that you can get an environment that is a pretty good for tropical development.
Right. So based on that, and we were even discussing like, all right, how can we make sure to not let this happen again? It's not that it not happen again, but how can we try to make sure to always improve on what we do? And it's like, all right, well, we need to look for that ridge over troubled water signal because it was always there with this, even if the storm system was weak each and every time, from the October, November to December, January. I think that was our struggle is you can't highlight everything. And so it's just trying to
Right.
find it and whittle it down to nothing.
And one thing I also want to mention, I sent it to you yesterday, is that the last time that this part of the pattern came through with Chantal, we had a low or organizing northeast Gulf. It crossed Florida, hopped off the southeast coast,
Yep.
and then it became named. So
Yep.
if you go back and look at that July 4th timeframe, that's why as we go into this, that's sort of our best estimate based off everything we looked at with
Yep.
that yellow shaded area. But I'll tell you what, anywhere Florida to North Carolina right now, let's just keep an eye on that disturbance out there. It's nothing that you need to go change your day today and start
Right.
getting ready. And but let's just monitor this pretty closely.
Yeah, I think that that's probably the best way to look at it, right? But we're recognizing it, and to that point, we had even highlighted it prior to any wave forming or anything like that.
Right.
So it may not have been a part of our original package, but we at least recognized, all right, well, here's a part of the weather pattern that also now that we've seen it needs to be watched. So that's kind of what we're
Yeah. So
doing.
yeah, last week we were talking about this, and it was before there was any area highlighted, any
Right.
wave that had even gotten to the western part of Africa. So
Yep.
yeah, so we'll be monitoring it, and this may give us a clue because this would probably, at least as part of the pattern, appear again in later September. And also, always, my birthday, September 26th, we always have a storm around. Always, somewhere. And last year, of course, unfortunately, like Florida, my
Right.
area into South Carolina, Appalachians, that was Helene.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, but when you look at the activity by the month and by the day, you're just on the backside of the peak of hurricane season. So it makes sense. More than 90% of tropical systems happen after August 1st. So even though, yes, it's been a somewhat slow start to the season, look at the season by the numbers. We are just now getting into that real peak of activity. And when we look at the data, let's just kind of take it for what it is. So we've had four named storms now with Dexter. The average through today is 3.2 named storms. And last year through today, we'd had four. So we're not that far off from last year. And we are above average, at least in the number of named storms.
Yeah, and then storm days, we're up to four. Maybe we end up getting that up to five. We are running behind average there. That's not a bad thing, but
Right,
we could start to see more activity here. And if we get something that would develop a little quicker in the main development region, that hangs around for probably 7 to 10 days. So
right.
that number would go up. Obviously, the ACE number, we're behind, and
Yep.
sometimes it gets tough when you get really far behind. You'd have to have multiple systems to start catching up, but this is just sort of adding up a score tied to the strength of storms and the accumulated cyclonic energy.
Yeah. So, and we're not rooting for these numbers to go up, but we're giving you at least perspective so you understand where we are now versus years past. And at the end of the day, I think that the big takeaway is the fact that we're now getting into the peak of season. And while, yes, there is still Saharan dust around, right? Here's a look let me just dial this up here and I'll share it. But here's kind of the idea when it comes to the Saharan dust. Like it's still out there. Once this really starts to shut off, Jeremy, I would fully suspect that things go real busy real quick.
Yeah, and that's probably a good thing it's out there right now, or this would probably rapidly
Oh
develop.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's really one of the reasons why models are not very aggressive here initially. And then
right,
they wait until it gets into this better environment somewhere uh, near north of the islands or anywhere, not saying it's headed towards the Windward or Leeward Islands, but if you drew that line all the way up through the Atlantic imaginary line, once it starts crossing that is when a lot of models are starting to grasp that, hey, something may strengthen or organize.
right. So for now, just a couple of areas to watch. We've got Dexter plus two others. Listen, we're into August now. Water temperatures continue to warm. The Saharan dust will continue to wane. And once we kind of get that perfect setup, we'll really start to have to deal with storms. But the hype machine online has already begun, Jeremy, and hopefully we'll be able to um, do our best as two folks in the meteorological enterprise to get good information on. But you know what they say is that a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on. So hopefully we're doing our little part to put
Right.
one leg in at a time.
Yeah, and if anything happens to form, we'll keep you updated. But I think next Tuesday could get a little more interesting when we chat.
Problem is, you and I had said that exact statement last Tuesday. It is more interesting. I don't
Yes.
particularly love anything interesting because it usually ends up being you and I having to work extra, but
Right.
that's a part of what we signed up for in our jobs.
Yes. Yeah. So mid-August is kind of the time frame to watch if anything would happen to get a little closer to any type of land. So uh, we'll watch that thing off the southeast coast and east of Florida, but we're really not on a concern level that I
No.
would say very, very low right now.
No, it's definitely going to be that area that is out in the open Atlantic. That's the one that has me at least watching closely and just watching these model trends, particularly the ensembles Jeremy and I had discussed. Those are definitely interesting, we'll say. But it's not like anything's locked in. Like that's the important thing. I'm
Right.
not saying it's locked, I'm not saying it's interesting because I'm going to get hit or you're going to get hit. It's just
Right.
because it's such a big model spread and there's consistency in development, it's interesting and nothing more than that.
Yeah, in the last day or two, though, speaking of social media, I did see some people, even meteorologists, that were like, "Oh, this will probably be a fish storm because it's kind of that track that was like
Yeah,
northwest," and I was just like, I'm not going to be that person. I'll hope
right.
that it turns no land interaction. But we saw the ensemble spread that were from the Gulf to east of North Carolina,
Yeah,
and so I'm not going to be on the this is a fish storm. I'm just going to say we're going to monitor it right now,
right.
and we'll just keep an eye. It's going to take 7+ days to cross the Atlantic.
Well, you know what they say? Well, what is the term? Weaker goes west, right? So if this thing
Yes,
wants to bomb out quickly, then it will want to pick up that Coriolis force and recurve. But if it stays weaker longer, it's going to move more west. So Though that's why forecasting 240, 300 hours out becomes real troublesome because there's way too many variables for computers or the human brain to really dial into.
Yeah, and if that dusty dry air, which we just showed you, kind of hangs around, limits any development, this will be that weaker west trend, and
Right.
then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So that's the fun of tracking the tropics. And we invite you to share this with your friends, with your family, and hopefully we give you a calming voice during hurricane season that can be a little frightening. That's our goal at least. And to give you a long range look ahead as well.
Yeah, and also I just want to take 1 second here for anyone that watching here that may have stopped by our severe weather expo that we had in Savannah over the weekend on Saturday. Huge shout out! We had the response was exceeded our expectations. Hey,
Oh,
it's
good.
summer, school's about to start, which
Yeah.
it did start this week here in Savannah, and we had a huge turnout for that. And we got so lucky there was no rain, and it was the first day in over a month that the high didn't hit 90 degrees or higher. So we had highs in the 80s, so it was a great day.
Take that win, right?
Yep.
Love it. All right. Anything else, my friend?
Nope.
Very good. All right. Well, listen, from sunny Central Florida, I'm West 2 meteorologist Eric Burris.
And in Savannah, Georgia, on WJCL 22, Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Nelson.
You and I will be chatting soon, my friend, but all of us will reconvene next Tuesday.